Former Notre Dame quarterback Brandon Wimbush will continue his career at Central Florida. Wimbush announced his graduate transfer destination Tuesday morning. The journey continues on, Wimbush wrote on Instagram. A sincere thank you to Notre Dame for giving me endless opportunities on and off the field. Words truly cannot describe what this incredible university and the people mean to me and always will mean to me. I'm truly thankful, cannot say it enough. With that being said, I am excited to announce that UCF has granted me an awesome opportunity to play my last year of collegiate football for their great university. Wimbush will enter into a starting opportunity, although an unfortunate one and a competitive one. The late November horrendous knee injury to three-year starter Mackenzie Milton will almost assuredly sideline him through the 2019 season. If not for the injury, Milton would either be starting 2019 for the Knights or headed to the NFL. In his first year of any action, sophomore Daryl Mack played in 10 games for Central Florida, completing 51 of his 100 pass attempts for 619 yards and 3 touchdowns, including going 35 of 71 for 526 yards and 3 scores in the 2+ games Milton missed. In other words, Mack put up Wimbush-esque numbers, despite Heupel's high-scoring offense. Wimbush finishes his Irish career with a 13-3 record as a starter, including 4 wins during 2018's unbeaten regular season. After the Notre Dame offense failed to break 24 points in the first 3 games of the season, offensive coordinator Chip Long turned to Ian Book for a spark. One Book provided and then some. Wimbush's role became non-existent after that, aside from a senior day start in place of an injured Book, throwing for 130 yards and 3 touchdowns while rushing for 68 yards. Related reading: the quarterback Notre Dame needed, Brandon Wimbush. In the lead-up to the Cotton Bowl, word broke Wimbush would seek a graduate transfer, confirming what had long been obvious. It had been so clear, it did not faze anyone within the Irish locker room. Sam must differ on Brandon Wimbush, in case you needed clarification on how Wimbush is viewed in the locker room. In only the fashion that Brandon Wimbush got, news breaks that he's gonna be moving on and people only love him even more. Make fun of him for it. Pete Sampson, at @PetaSampson_, December 26, 2018. Must differ and co. Will now have reason to keep an eye on the Knights in 2019. After going 25-1 in the last 2 seasons, Central Florida will want to keep the momentum rolling, particularly with Stanford arriving in Orlando on Sept. 14, a week before the Knights head to Pittsburgh. The Knights genuinely entering the college football playoff conversation remains unlikely, but topping those 2 before rolling through the American Athletic Conference would at least start the discussion, especially if a former Irish quarterback headlines the way. A consensus 3-star prospect out of Virginia, Mack held offers from Eastern schools in the Big Ten, Maryland, Big 12, West Virginia, and ACC, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh. Named 2018's next man in, Wimbush finishes his Irish career with 2,606 yards on 193 of 382 passing with 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions along with 1,155 rushing yards and 16 additional touchdowns. As for Notre Dame's QB in 2019, early Heisman odds came from an online sportsbook Tuesday, betonline.ag. Irish rising senior Ian Book was given 16-1 odds, tied for 9th on the listing. Given the names ahead of him, Book's realistic chances of winning the Heisman Trophy are slim. Only Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence and Alabama quarterback Tua Tagovailoa have odds lower than 12-1, at 7-2 and 4-1, respectively. Then come 2 Notre Dame opponents, Georgia running back DeAndre Swift and quarterback Jake Fromm, both at 12-1. Michigan quarterback Shea Patterson checks in at 25-1, just ahead of Stanford quarterback KJ Costello at 33-1. If nothing else, Book can count on some early season hype if the Irish top Swift and Fromm on Sept. 21. Inside the Irish Reading, even that way too early. 2019 polls already respect Notre Dame. Notre Dame's offensive depth chart entering the 2019 off-season. Claypool's return welcome news for Notre Dame. Program record 10 early enrollees mark the beginning of Notre Dame's 2019. Autry Denson leaves Notre Dame to take over at Charleston Southern. Notre Dame's opponents' early NFL departures hit Georgia, Michigan and Stanford hardest outside reading. Brandon Wimbush and UCF are a promising match for a pivotal 2019. The three biggest questions in college football for the 2019 season. 2019 NFL Draft Underclassmen Tracker, who has declared Stanford's Bryce Love on the path to recovery from torn ACL. College football's 100 best games 2018-19. A sign of a strong program is one that loses players to the NFL before they exhaust eligibility. In that vein, Notre Dame lost a consensus first-team All-American cornerback, its leading receiver and a longtime tease of a tight end. The last of those Ollies, Mack was never expected back for a fifth season. Replacing Miles Boykin's production is certainly within reason, and a consensus first-team All-American should be expected to take the route junior Julian Love has. Even with that expectation, losing Love, and to a lesser extent Boykin, alters the natural roster cycle, the inherent design intended during recruiting. Reloading is always the hope, the next intention, but very rarely is the young backup comparable to the near professional, even by the end of the coming season. Nonetheless, the Irish got off easy this cycle compared to four of their 2019 opponents. Georgia junior running back Elijah Holyfield, the Bulldogs' second leading rusher, departs after gaining 1,018 rushing yards with 7 touchdowns on 6.4 yards per carry this season. Frankly, that is the least of Georgia's losses. 3 of quarterback Jake Fromm's 4 favorite targets will leave eligibility on the figurative table. Junior receiver Riley Ridley, 44 catches for 570 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2018. Junior receiver Mecole Hardman, 34 catches for 532 yards and 7 touchdowns. Junior tight end Isaac Nauta, 30 catches for 430 yards and 3 touchdowns. Without running back Karen Higdon, Michigan will presumably rely on its passing game more in 2019. Quarterback Shea Patterson's second season as a Wolverine. Photo by Gregory Shamus. Getty Images. Michigan. The Wolverines got good news when quarterback Shea Patterson opted to return for 2019, but losing leading rusher Karen Higdon, 1,178 yards, 10 touchdowns, 5.3 average will be an issue head coach Jim Harbaugh undoubtedly hoped to avoid. Junior tight end Zach Gentry, Patterson's third most prolific target with 32 catches for 514 yards and 2 scores, will also head to the next level. On the flip side, Harbaugh could have hoped linebacker Devin Bush, team-leading 80 tackles with 9.5 for loss including 5 sacks, defensive end Rashawn Gary, 44 tackles with 7 for loss including 3.5 sacks, or linebacker David Long, 17 tackles with 1 interception, might return, but no such luck for Michigan. Duke junior quarterback Daniel Jones will head to the NFL after his third season as a starter, immediately lowering the Blue Devils' 2019 expectations. Photo by Grant Halverson. Getty Images. Duke junior linebacker Joe Giles Harris paced the Blue Devils with 81 tackles, including 7 for loss with 1 sack, doing so in only 9 games. But losing Giles Harris is hardly the concern for Duke. The decision to turn pro from quarterback Daniel Jones is. In his third year as a starter, the junior fought through a broken collarbone to still play in 11 games in 2018, completing 60.5% of his passes for 2,674 yards and 22 touchdowns with 9 interceptions. He added 319 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Jones' decision may come as a surprise, but it is one that should work out well for both him and Notre Dame. Some mock drafts project him as a top 10 pick. In a draft light on quarterbacks, partly because Oregon's Justin Herbert returned for another season, yet already somewhat counteracted by the Monday draft entry from Oklahoma's Kyler Murray, Jones could end up being the 3rd or 4th passer picked. Boston College, the Eagles will say farewell to junior cornerback Hem Shivers after he notched 7 interceptions this season, returning 1 for a touchdown, to go along with 39 tackles. Stanford. This will seem like the Cardinal lost a lot to the NFL draft, but it could have been worse, as the departures mounted, so did speculation junior quarterback KJ Costello might follow them. He opted not to. Stanford will be without running back Bryce Love after his prodigious 2 seasons as the starter. Consider that a loss akin to the Irish Love, the inevitable price of enjoying the success in the first place. Junior receiver J.J. Arcega-Whiteside will capitalize on his breakout season of 1,059 yards and 14 touchdowns, depriving Costello of his favorite jump ball threat. Junior tight end Caden Smith will also head to the next level, in large part thanks to his 47 catches for 635 yards and 2 touchdowns this past season. Louisville, New Mexico, Virginia, Bowling Green, USC, Virginia Tech and Navy all did not lose anyone early or pseudo-early to the NFL draft. Notre Dame's all-time leading rusher will no longer coach its current running backs. After 4 seasons at his alma mater, Autry Denson has been named the head coach at Charleston Southern, an FCS-level program, per a release Monday afternoon. The second longest tenured coach on Brian Kelly's staff, behind only defensive line coach Mike Elston, tied with cornerbacks coach Todd Light. Denson had produced quality Irish backs, peaking with Josh Adams' 1,430 rushing yards in 2017, leading an offense that averaged 269.5 rushing yards per game. I am so excited for Autry as he embarks on the next step of his coaching career as the new head coach at Charleston Southern, Kelly said in a statement. He has done a tremendous job for us during his time at Notre Dame. He not only developed our running backs to produce at a high level on the field, but he was also instrumental in their growth as young men. Only Adams and C.J. Prosise broke 1,000 rushing yards in a season under Denson, though Dexter Williams gained 995 in only 9 games this past season. A third-round pick in 2016, Prosise has spent his entire career with the Seattle Seahawks, while Adams rushed for 511 yards and 3 touchdowns in his rookie season with the Philadelphia Eagles. Williams should join them in the NFL in April's draft. All of them paled in comparison to Denson's college days, a career that saw him gain 4,318 rushing yards, 43 touchdowns and 3 seasons of more than 1,000 rushing yards. A 1998 All-American, Denson then spent 5 years in the NFL. Denson began his coaching career at the FCS level at Bethune-Cookman in Daytona Beach, Florida, a couple hundred miles up the coast from his hometown outside of Miami. I was drawn to Charleston Southern by the vision of this great Christian university of integrating faith and learning, leading and serving, Denson said. As a result, I knew this could be a place where I could build and lead a program to honor Christ by operating with character, integrity, transparency, accountability and community. Charleston Southern went 5-6 in 2018 under Mark Tucker, who went 11-11 in 2 seasons before resigning last month. With the early enrollment of 10 freshmen, Notre Dame's 2019 has begun. Usually this sparks a debate among outsiders pitting the advantages of early enrollment against the high school experiences lost. Not only is that an argument held by those far from both the program and high school, but it is also one missing the team-wide edge gained. With 10 additional scholarship bodies this spring, the Irish will have 77 on hand, as of now. A total of 16 of those will be offensive linemen, including 4 mid-year arrivals. Whereas there are some springs in which Notre Dame struggles to field a second unit on its offensive line, this March and April will feature 3 complete units with a body to spare. There will be just as many defensive lines, with 3 early enrollees bringing the total up to 14 scholarship players knocking around this spring, though the health of rising sophomore Jamian Franklin Quad may drop it a notch. Either way, the Irish will have more depth on hand this spring than usual. The 10 freshmen spurning a semester of high school will still have their chance at added weight room time, meaningful spring repetitions and theoretical development, but those rewards can end up as much hypothetical as realized. It is nearly impossible to predict if running back Kyren Williams, pictured above, will be tangibly more developed in September because he got to South Bend in January. Linebacker Jack Kaiser is unlikely to play much as a freshman in either scenario. Punter Jay Bramblett is certainly going to no matter what. However, the opportunity to have thorough practices with up-front depth should only enhance the effects of this spring. None of this will ever become exactly normal, even if Notre Dame has increased its early enrollee numbers from beginning in 2006 to 7 last season and now these 10. Of this grouping, some are the first to make this exact leap in their high school's history. Many private schools do not make such possible. For that matter, this influx speaks to this group in particular, not an overall trend. It is, nonetheless, a group receiving many of the same praises Irish head coach Brian Kelly has offered in years past and will undoubtedly offer as long as he remains in this post. These guys are serious about what they are doing, Kelly said in December's early signing period. They are signing up for getting a degree and winning a national championship. These are not silly guys. These are guys that are really focused on coming here to win a national championship. Of course, that is always Kelly's stated goal. The national championship game may be 364 days from now, but that process has already begun anew. The 10 early enrollees, offensive tackles Quinn Carroll and Andrew Kristofic, offensive guard John Olmstead, center Zeke Carrell, running back Kyren Williams, defensive tackles Jacob Lacey and Hunter Spears, defensive end Nana Osafo, Mensa linebacker Jack Kaiser, punter Jay Bramblett. Notre Dame will need to replace only one receiver next season. Chase Claypool announced he will return for his senior season Thursday evening. This may have been long presumed, but less qualified players have entered the NFL draft with eligibility remaining in years past. With the departure of Miles Boykin, Claypool will become the leading Irish target, the prime candidate to replace Boykin's 59 catches for 872 yards and 8 touchdowns. A year ago, asking Claypool to put up numbers like that would have been a leap beyond reason, but after a 2018 season in which he accounted for 50 catches, 639 yards, and 4 touchdowns, Claypool becoming an offense's best playmaker is fathomable beyond just pinning those hopes on the Canadian native's athleticism. Claypool's career began as a special teams star, making 11 tackles in 2016, while catching only 5 passes for 81 yards. An inconsistent sophomore season followed, managing 29 catches for 402 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those may sound like solid numbers, but they include only 5 catches in the season's final 4 games, and only 1 game with more than 4 catches all season. Claypool had at least 4 catches in 7 games this season, all started by junior quarterback Ian Buck. With Buck throwing, Claypool averaged 4.67 catches and 58.56 yards per game, highlighted by 8 for 130 at Northwestern. Claypool and current senior Chris Fink will presumably both start again, while one of a number of rising sophomores could step in either for Boykin on the boundary or for Claypool on the field side, with Claypool possibly taking over boundary duties. With 5 catches for 90 yards in his freshman campaign and a skill set similar to Boykin's, Kevin Austin may be the front-runner for that starting role.